Goalie position, only one goalie in net, two goalies, right? Obviously dressed. What's it like to be sitting on the bench or, like so-called not playing? What these goalies could take from, I guess, your advice, but also the players when you're not playing. What do you suggest for them? Like, what do
Yeah,
you
that's a,
do for yourself?
yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, I think if you add up my games, I've probably played over 300 pro games. I missed a lot of games due to injury, and then I backed up a lot of games too. So I'm probably at 600 plus pro games where I was playing or on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
And so being on the bench doesn't mean you're not in the game. You know, I was always engaging with my teammates, giving them pointers, cheering them on, stuff like that. It seems silly uh, when you're talking about like 30-year-old man doing that, like cheering your buddies on, but it's super important and it's part of being a goalie. You're not going to start every game. You can't because you get too beat up. You need to be a part of your team and an essential part of your team, even when you're not starting. So even in the minor hockey level, like get up, stand up, chirp for your buddies, cheer them on, let them know if you're seeing anything, how to score on this other goalie, what are his tendencies, make sure you're opening the gate, like help your teammates out. That's what you're there for. It's not a death sentence to sit on the bench. So don't waste your time,
Yeah.
um, be the part of the team, essential part of the team that you are, you and your goalie partner, right?
Yeah. Yeah, these are great. Consider myself, but I also feel like, as from what you're saying, to add on to that is just that positive vibe. Just
Yeah.
want to be there, of course, yourself, but for your teammates and others, when you put that in, they'll respect you and see that from you. That will reciprocate. Maybe not right away. Maybe 6 months, year, 5 years from now, they'll really, really appreciate who you are and your character that way, I think. But I mean, most of all, it's it's part of it all, the passion of it all.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like you said it best when you want to be known and remembered for that character and that positivity that you brought. And I think um, in my case, near the tail end of my career, I almost was continuing to get jobs based on that. I always wanted to be the hardest working guy. When I was doing NHL training camps for fitness testing, always top three. A lot of the like summer prospects camps, I'd win the fitness testing, and like at that time, no one had goalies that were crushing it like that. So setting an example that way physically, and then like we talked about in practice, on the bench when you're not starting, being a part of the team, contributing what you can with the situation that you're in, becomes of huge importance for developing a reputation that can help you down the line, but also to build buy-in with your teammates.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other stories you'd like to share? Final parts.
I got lots.
Any?
Depends on who's listening. Uh, I mean, there's so much over the years. I mean, the friendships you develop, this, right? Like I still talk to my classmates from school almost every week. Um, and we never talk about hockey, right? So just the friendships you have, I think are extremely important. Um, I've had money disputes with KHL teams. I've been on planes that are duct taped together, flying through Russia, uh, like riding the bus where it breaks down, and our 10-hour bus trip takes 24 hours to get home. Like stuff like that happens throughout all these years. Um, and sure, we get grumpy and like make fun of it at the time, but now I almost miss it, you know.
When everything goes perfectly, it's not a story.
Exactly. And it never does, fortunately, right?
Yeah.
uh like they're just hilarious stuff like that. I was on a plane, my would have been my second year pro. You were still allowed to play 4 and 5 in the American League, which is wild because like people go wild, go crazy when NHL guys play back to back. But anyways, we're playing four games in 5 days with travel. So we'd play like Wednesday at home, Friday in Chicago, Saturday at home, and then we'd fly to Texas for a Sunday matinee. One of these weekends we're flying out the Sunday morning because we got to play that afternoon in Texas. And we're like on our first flight, and one of the engines on the plane blows. And so there's like this huge thump, and the plane starts shaking and everyone starts going crazy, and like people are praying and screaming at the flight attendants like what's happening and all this stuff. Anyways, we had to make an emergency landing on the way and like recharter a whole thing. We showed up at the rink in San Antonio at like six o'clock, and warm up starts at like 6:20 or whatever. And so we just like hopped off the bus and had to play games and stuff like that. And all the fans at the game never knew about it. Like no one was complaining. We just put our stuff on and like played a game. And meanwhile, we could have been on like a plane crash the same day. It was stuff, I'll never forget stuff like that. You know, there are a few memories of actual hockey stuff, right? Games or saves or whatever. But the bulk of what I remember from my career is stuff that happened with teammates or with or during travel or at parties or whatever, things like that, right? It's not the actual sporting accomplishments, but the entire experience, I guess.
Yeah. It's all the hockey journey. It's definitely would do it again. That's for
It's
sure.
a wild one. Yeah, it's a wild one. Like,
awesome.
Yeah, you're in for a long ride. It's yeah, it has to be
definitely have
fun.
to appreciate what they
Yeah.
have. That's obviously not easy. It's easier said than done, but appreciate them and just love it and spend time with all your buddies and who you're meeting. It could last a lifetime, and you can meet like you said, you could meet your wife, you could meet your future boss and your best friend and all this stuff. So
Yeah, actually that sort of can lead me into my transition of how I became a personal trainer and wanted to get into the strength and conditioning stuff, especially with athletes. My trainer throughout it all since the time I was 15 like had his own gym, and when I retired I saw they were hiring. I reached out to him and was like, can I come work for you? And it was, because of our relationship and all the stuff and communication we had put in over all those years, he's like, of course, come out. So I worked for him for 2 years, gained some experience on how to coach people and how to put together solid exercise programs. And
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and so worked for him for almost 2 years, developed the experience to be able to provide a better service, all the while I was building up my own business at the same time. So for 2 years post-retirement, my family was living in the red, so we were draining money so I could build this experience. And so I'm eternally grateful for him for giving me that opportunity. And then now be able to have my own spot where I train adults and athletes.
Yeah. Great. And this last part, do you want to talk a little bit about Tech Show High Performance?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
So like I mentioned a few times, I do one-on-one personal training for adults, but a lot of athletes as well. I train a lot of goalies, handful of guys in the BCHL, a lot of other local youth players. And I had mentioned earlier how I really enjoyed or was good at the physical part of preparation for hockey. Would always do well in fitness testing. I always loved training. I love lifting weights and things like that. So this is like a dream come true for me. After a dream come true, like I played a sport as a job for 10 years, which is hilarious. And now I get to wear sweatpants to work, walk downstairs to my basement where I have a gym and coach people all day. So I really love doing it. It's my way of giving back to the game. In that I can share a lot of my experiences, like we talked about, with my clients, and also my insight into, how the game is being played at any given time, what are the physical demands of it, and how I can help prepare somebody physically for their sport. 14. And so now, I haven't taken more than a few weeks off for the last 20 years. I love lifting weights. I love training. It's a lot of fun. As I mentioned, I had a very good trainer early on from the beginning, who I developed a great relationship with and later went to work for. The earliest I will start resistance training with youth is 12 years old. Not because it's dangerous or anything like that, just because it takes a level of maturity to understand what we need to do this safely and effectively. But yeah, I think resistance training in general for athletes is some of the lowest hanging fruit you can get. And it helps fill buckets that aren't being filled with their sporting activities, right? Which I think is also important. Yeah, so I started at 14 and then just never stopped.